Welcome to Tech Brothers. In this video we're going to learn how to create linked server in SQL Server. We'll be using two ways to do it: SQL Server Management Studio graphic user interface and using T-SQL script. Sometimes we have no other choice but to create linked server. The reason I'm saying that, I'm not a big fan of linked servers. But if you're using Synonym and trying to access the remote objects of another SQL server, then you have to create the linked server. And also, if you're trying to if you're using your T-SQL, if you're writing code in T-SQL and you're trying to access the remote resources of SQL Server, such as tables, store procedure, you have to create a linked server. You cannot do it without linked server. But my recommended way, that if you wanted to do that, please create SSIS package, because there you don't have to create linked servers. You can define your sources and destination multiple times in integration services. But that's my recommended way. But just in case that if you have to create a linked server, how to create a linked server, I'm going to show you in this video. So we're gonna go ahead, and this is my SQL Server. Tech Brother client is my server. SQL Mirror is my instance name, and in order to create linked server, you need to expand your instance and go to server objects. If you expand server objects, you will see a linked server right here. If you have more linked server already, it'll appear right here. But we're gonna, in order to create linked server, new linked server, we're gonna go ahead and right click on linked server, click on new linked server. Now, first thing that you need to do is you need to name your link server, which I'm going to do is prod. And if you are, there are a couple ways you could do that. If you're connecting from this SQL Server instance to another SQL Server instance, the best way to create a link server is click on SQL Server right here, and all these choices will be gone, and you have to provide link server basically the name of the remote server instance. In my case is Tech Brothers SQL /SQL prod. This is my SQL Server instance. Another SQL Server instance that is basically installed on Tech Brothers SQL Server. So I'm trying to access all the databases, or whatever the databases I'm trying to access on this server. So I need to provide the fully qualified the server name and the instance name in my linked name server. So this is one way that you can do that. Let's go ahead and do this first, and then we're going to go ahead and basically do the other data sources option. So I'm going to go ahead and click on security. This is very important. Up here you have an option, local server login to remote server login mapping. If you wanted to, if you have permission of impersonate the logins, local logins with the remote logins and remote login password, you can add it here and click on not be made, and that would access your remote SQL Server resources. But we're going to do the best way, my recommended way is when you create a link server, please have a SQL Server authentication user, and use that particular user right here, be made with using security context, because it's much more secure. So in my case, I do have a SQL Server remote login. This login needs to have access on the remote SQL Server. So in my case, I have a DB manager, and I'm going to provide the password right here. So this is the password that this will connect to the remote server. So there are some server options. Most of the time you do not need to touch these server options, but if you need to change the server options, such as data access, RPC out, all these options are available for you. So we're going to go ahead and click on general and click OK, and it's going to tell us that Tech Brothers SQL PRD already exist, and I'm going to show you. I just wanted to reproduce this, that if the SQL Server, if you click on SQL Server and that SQL Server already exists, doesn't matter what security context it is under, it's not going to let you create another link server with the same name. So if we cancel this and expand our link server, you can see TBS SQL Server SQL prod is already existed, and this database, this SQL Server user that I used to connect with, if you go to the properties and go to the security, you will see exactly the same thing, DB manager and the password. And up here I have clicked on SQL Server and given the name and server options. I have not touched any of them. So just so that you know that this is how you create it. So once you create that, you can expand this and click on catalogs. This catalog will depend on the permission of this user right here. Whatever the access this user have, how many databases access of this user has, this will appear in catalogs. Catalogs means the databases in this context. So we're going to go ahead and cancel this. This is my sysadmin on the other my remote server. So if I click on catalogs, it should show me all the databases that reside on SQL PROD instance in TBS SQL Server. So we're going to go ahead and expand that. As you can see, I can see all the databases on that server. So what I'm going to do right now is leave this here, and we're going to go ahead and cover the other option. Click on new on link server, and I'm going to name this link server PROD, and we're going to use other data sources. Let's look at the providers. Right here is Microsoft OLEDB provider for SQL Server, and other options we have a native client 11.0, and then we have ODBC right here, and we have analysis services. If you wanted to connect to analysis services and you wanted to create a link server to analysis services, you can use this. If you have an ODBC connection already made, which I'm going to show you real quick up here. These are the ODBC 32, and this is ODBC 64. If you have created any one of them and you wanted to use that in your link server, you can go ahead and select OLE or DB ODBC driver. So we're going to go ahead and keep the SQL Server user right here, Microsoft OLEDB provider SQL Server. Product name, if you basically you can leave this alone. The data source is much more important. Data source is network name of SQL Server. That means you need to provide the SQL Server fully qualified server and instance name. In my case is TBS SQL /SQL PROD. So this is my TBS SQL Server. This is my data source, and this is the string. If you wanted to basically create a string and put that here, which will cover this data source and all that catalog and everything, all the information, you can put that here, but I would just go ahead and put the data source here. If you know what database the user that you're going to configure that you wanted to access, you can put right here. I'm going to go ahead and do sales orders. I'm going to go ahead and connect with sales orders. The way that my permissions right now is that I am sysadmin, the user I'm using to create this link server. I'm sysadmin, so it's going to give me all the databases basically. But there would be a time when you have a user who has permission to certain databases and not all of the databases, and sometimes you have to you have an option to provide the database name right here. So catalog is your database name. So let's click on security. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, DB manager, and provide the password, and I'm going to click OK, and as you can see that it has created right here another link server. So if we open that, it should show us all the databases. The reason it is showing us all the databases because that it has a sysadmin. So let's go ahead and take the sysadmin out and see if we can just access the sales order database. So I'm going to go ahead and connect with my SQL prod, and I'm going to go ahead and go into logins, and I'm going to go ahead and go to user mapping and find sales order right here. He's DB admin up there. I'm going to go to server roles, and I'm going I'm going to take the sysadmin out. So this user now has only access to sales order, so I'm going to disconnect this. So we're going to go ahead and refresh this and click on the catalog. As you can see, now it doesn't have all the permissions on all the databases, it has just the sales orders. So this is how basically you create a link server using SQL Server Management Studio graphic user interface. And I'm going to go ahead and delete these right here, the link servers, and load our T-SQL script and create using T-SQL script. So I'm going to go ahead and click on File, Open, and we're going to go ahead and create link server. So up here, this is the link server. As you can see, I'm using DB Manager and providing the password. These are the server options right here. This is just a T-SQL way to basically create a SQL server. I'm using basically the SQL Server option. If you saw that, I'm not using the other provider in this particular script, but if you need to use other provider, you can use the similar script, but you need to put a product name and all other options that's there. So we're going to go ahead and execute this. It says it already exists and we are not connected with the right database, so we're going to go ahead and Control A, Control C. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to go ahead and connect with SQL Mirror, and let's make sure that we don't have this link server. We don't, and let's show we are connected with SQL Mirror, so we're going to go ahead and execute this. As you can see, that command completed successfully. Let's go ahead and refresh that, and as you can see that we're connected with SQL Prod, and we should be able to access the login failed. I believe that just because of this, when you create using script and you scripted out already created link server, right here is the password is not gets reset when you run the script. So we're going to go ahead, this is for security reasons, this is good. So we're going to go ahead, right click on this particular server, click on security and put the password just one more time. Anytime you move the link server from one place to another place, and if you're using the SQL Server authenticated user, then it's going to put the password like this, and all you need to do is put the password in here again. So alright, we're gonna go ahead and refresh that and go to the catalog, and now we see that this particular user have permission to sales order, and we can look at all the tables in sales order. So basically this is how you create link server using SQL Server Management Graphic User Interface and T-SQL script, and we saw two options using connecting directly to SQL Server and using other providers. I hope this video helps.